Earlier this year, Governor Kemp signed off on the state budget for the 25-26 fiscal year. The $37 billion plan includes millions for public safety, health care, and transportation, as well as a $13.6 billion for public schools. But one group in the state is urging lawmakers to consider revisiting the budget because of the federal education funding cuts. In a letter sent last week, Verdaillia Turner, president of the Georgia Federation for Teachers, called on leadership in the state and the House, Senate and the House, to tap into the state's $16.5 billion budget reserve. She said, in part, are there any constitutional reasons that a meeting could not be requested and called with Governor Kemp to revisit this budget in order to fund local school districts and in areas affected by the cuts in the federal budget? Joining us now is Verdaillia Turner. She is the president of the Georgia Federation for Teachers. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
All right. That letter was brief, right? So go ahead and expand a little bit on your request to lawmakers and explain why you think this is in the best interest of the state.
Well, the school systems and the state's fiscal budget ended for last year on the 30th of June, and it began on July 1st of 2025, the day that President Trump decided to announce that he was cutting, which amounts to about $201 million plus, to the state of Georgia's education funds. This state has about a $16 billion surplus, and it is constitutional. We found out for 2/3. We would need 2/3 of the House and Senate to agree to come into special session and revisit the distribution of that budget to our public schools, or the governor, which is Governor Kemp, and we're about to write him a letter, could do the same thing.
I was going to ask you, where does that stand now? Now that you know that it is constitutional, where do you stand on that now?
Well, we're going to push for the governor and the people who are the leaders at the Senate and the House to call that special session. Mm-hmm. Now, I have to admit, we aren't hopeful for that. And one of the reasons we're not hopeful, that yesterday a letter went out by the Superintendent Woods saying that teachers would be paid. And, well, that's great that they're going to be paid, but some of that money comes from the state. Mm-hmm. And there are other programs that are at stake. You might get paid, but you also may get cut. Your job might get cut.
Right.
So that's not what's being said. We know that part of that $16 billion budget has gone in some tax refunds, and we don't want the voters to get too happy. We really just don't want them to get content, because we know that the only certainty that we have is uncertainty. Mm-hmm. We have been blindsided on July 1st by the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned maybe even job cuts, but where do you think the squeeze will be the most with this federal funding cut?
Well, the children who need it most, like in Title II programs and English as second official language learners, ESOL, beginning programs at the beginning of the day and after school programs. See, children who are from families, and that's middle class kids now, and even those who don't enjoy that kind of income, those are the ones that's going to lose tutorial services and special aids and paraprofessionals, their teacher training where teachers need it, because, we really have a shortfall of teachers in this state. Mm-hmm. There are programs we have. Some schools have pre-K, and that's not funded by the state or mandated by the state. There are other programs in the morning that enrich the lives of our children and help them with homework and sessions to understand math and reading and basics, etc. Those things will be cut, and districts will be scrambling to make up that shortfall. So districts have to pay for higher prices and everything, infrastructure, gasoline, etc., higher salaries. So now we're going to be squeezed even more.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, do you think you have enough to backfill some of those losses? Doesn't sound like you do. Do you think that it must come from the state level?
Well, yeah, it's going to have to come from the state at this particular point, and the state is going to have to be prioritized. This is one of the other reasons, Chelsea, that we are against all types of education, voodoo education. And I'm just going to say it out loud. Mm-hmm. Vouchers were pushed by this governor, and vouchers have nothing to do with academic performance. We see what's happening in Arizona. We see what's happening in Texas. Yet and still, the state has allocated money for special schools, for special interests, and we can't afford to do it at taxpayers' expense.
Yeah, we understand that there's a $16.5 billion reserve. How much of that do you think you would need to make this work?
$201 million. That's what we are affected by. We have 180 school districts and each one of them, let's say if that was just $1 million plus for each one of them, although that's not equitably distributed. Um, Look, the state could easily do it. They could easily do it. Just go into the reserve. And as long as our governor, and I'm not trying to go into his politics, is supporting President Trump, then if you're going to support his policies, then you fund the cuts to Georgia with that Georgia budget.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
You said you're not hopeful, but you are going to push. Do you think some people will have your back on this?
I'm sorry?
Do you think some of these lawmakers will have your back on this? I know you said you weren't hopeful, but you're going to push anyhow. Do you think some will?
We're going to raise it. It's just like any other movement.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to keep it going because if we let it die, then people will go on to something else. The truth is just the truth. And we're going to always tell the truth and let the Georgia voters know the power of the state. And I appreciate being able to do that.
Yeah. Lastly, let me ask you this. If the governor and the lawmakers don't grant you this, where do you see those first cuts being, or where do you have to kind of make up for, like right off the bat?
Oh my God. They're going to have the school districts are going to have to choose to cut down on services. They may even increase class sizes more. Special needs students would greatly be affected. The services would just flat be cut. And in fact, some schools may be closed. And there may be layoffs or firings. But it will get worse before it gets better.
Gotcha. All right, President Turner, really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for your insight this morning as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great day.